In the last lesson, we've created 2 projects, each to manage the onboarding of a new client. Now, over time, you're going to have many more new clients to onboard, and so you'll create many more projects just like these. But you'll have many other types of projects too, like each deliverable for a client, or each blog post, or each podcast episode, each sales proposal. And these types of projects happen repeatedly too, so they should follow their own standard processes. So how can we organize all these different types of projects so that they're not all mixed together in the same place? And how can we make sure that the right process gets used on each individual project? I mean, you wouldn't want to use your client onboarding process when the project calls for your blog post publishing process, right? Well, this is where boards come in. In this lesson, we'll go over what is a board, which boards should you create for your business, and how many do you really need? How to create and customize a board in ProcessKit, and how to automatically load the right processes in each board. I'll show you how to organize all the projects within a board, and as a little bonus, how to store key information using custom fields. All right, so what is a board? Boards in ProcessKit are spaces where you can manage all the projects that share a common type. For example, you might have a sales proposals board where you're keeping track of all the proposals that you currently have out to prospects. And each project within this sales proposals board would be known as a proposal. You might also have a new client onboarding board, and this is where you would manage all of the onboardings of new clients, just like the 2 projects that we've created so far. A board can contain many projects, all sharing the same type. A single project can only live inside one board at a time, but it's easy to move a project from one board to another. For example, a project might start out as a sales proposal, but later, once you win that contract, you might move that project into the new client onboardings board, where it'll continue on as an onboarding project. Okay, so which boards should you create for your business? Now, you don't need to create too many different boards. When you're just getting started, 1 or maybe just 2 boards could be all that you need to make your business a lot more organized. Another good rule of thumb when you're just getting started is to think about your processes and your boards in pairs. So if you have a new client onboarding process, then you should have a new client onboarding board, and we're going to create that board in just a minute. If you have a sales proposals process, then you should have a sales proposals board. If you have a blog post publishing process, then you should have a blog posts board. Now later on, as you build out more and more processes, you won't need to create a separate board for every process. You'll be able to combine processes and put multiple processes on projects in boards. But early on, when you're just setting up your operation, it's helpful to follow this simple workflow. First, create a process, then create a board where all of the projects that should follow that process will live. Okay, now let's actually put boards to use in ProcessKit. You can get to your boards here in the main navigation. Now out of the box, ProcessKit gave you one generic board called Projects. That's where we created those first 2 projects. One was called Onboarding of Dunder Mifflin, and the other project was called Onboarding of Sterling Cooper. Now, since we've created a process for new client onboarding, we really should have a dedicated board where we're managing all of our new client onboardings. So let's create that now. We'll click the New Board button, and let's title this board New Client Onboarding. And we'll set the single item label to Onboarding. Now, just a quick side note, the name of this board is a little bit unusual, but generally you'll want to make the board title plural and the single item label singular. For example, if this board was called Blog Posts, then a single project would be referred to as a post. In your sales proposals board, a single project could be referred to as a proposal. But here we're dealing with new client onboardings, so we'll consider each individual project an onboarding project. Next, let's customize this board by assigning it a unique icon, and this will make it easier for us to visually distinguish this board and the projects within it from other projects in other boards. And I'm going to go with the rocket icon for this one. We'll leave this board's permissions set to everyone, and then we'll click Create Board to save it. Now, since our new client onboarding board is where all of our new client onboarding projects happen, and since all of those projects are going to need to follow our new client onboarding process, we should really automate that, shouldn't we? Well, now that we're inside of our new client onboarding board, let's go to the Processes tab. Then we'll select our new client onboarding process and we'll set it as a preloaded process on this board. And what that means is that every new project that we create inside this board will be pre-populated with a task list built as a copy of our new client onboarding process. Okay, so let's see this in action. I'm going to go ahead and create a new project inside this board. It's an onboarding project. And we're going to name it Onboarding of Initech. That's our latest, newest client. And just like that, this new project has been automatically pre-populated with the tasks that my team will need to follow as they onboard our newest client, Initech. All right, let's back out to all of our boards again. Now, remember those first two projects that we created over in our projects board? Those really belong over in the new client onboarding board, right? So let's move those projects over now. I'm going to go into the projects board and let's open up this first board, onboarding of Sterling Cooper. Okay, I'm going to pull down this project settings and I'm going to go to move to board. We'll select our new client onboarding board. That's the board we want to move to. And in this case, I'm going to uncheck these two boxes. If I had these checked, then the preloaded processes and the preloaded custom fields on the destination board would be automatically applied to the project when we move it over. But in this case, since we had already created this task list from our new client onboarding process, then we wouldn't want this move to result in creating a duplicate task list on this project. So we'll leave those unchecked and then we'll click Move. Okay, so now this has been moved into the new client onboarding board. I'm going to go ahead and do the same thing with the other project. Back into projects, go into this last one, and we will move to that board, uncheck these boxes, and move it. And now I'll back out to the board, and as you can see, we have all three onboarding projects now live inside this board. Now, how can we better organize all the projects within a board? Well, when you view a board for the first time, it defaults to viewing the projects in list mode, as we see now. Now, we can switch over to a Kanban view by clicking this Kanban icon over here. Now, by default, in Kanban view, it gives you three Kanban lists. One's called Incoming, In Progress, and Complete. And we can drag projects along in these Kanban lists. Now let's customize these Kanban lists for this board. First, I'm going to rename the first three lists. And I'm going to add a fourth list. We'll call that one Ready for Service. Great. And so these list names are a much better fit for how the process of moving projects along in this board will actually work. Clients just signed up, so they start here, and then they're going to schedule their kickoff call. Then we've completed their kickoff call, and then eventually they are ready for service. Now later on, I'm going to show you how you can even automate this Kanban board so that projects move along by themselves just by completing steps in the process. Now, one more thing, I just want to tell you about one more feature, which you can really dig into more on your own, but I wanted to tell you about it here. If we go into one of these projects and we go into details, every project comes with these default fields like notes, a start date, and an end date. But we can add additional custom fields that are more relevant for this type of project. And you can create those custom fields over here. If you go back out to boards and then find the fields, and here we can create all different types of fields like a text, rich text, select, website URL, email address, selectable options, things like that. And just like processes, when you're in a board, you can preload those custom fields as well. So every project inside the new client onboarding board should get our preloaded process, that's our new client onboarding process, and it should get any custom fields that we've defined here. So that's a little bonus tip, a little bit more advanced. You can go ahead and play with that. You can even integrate these custom fields with Zapier and really automate things. But again, we're getting a little bit ahead of ourselves. Just wanted to tell you about that here. In the next lesson, we're going to take your process automation up a notch. I'm going to show you how to create dynamic date rules on your processes so that your tasks can automatically calculate their due dates and automatically adjust to changes on the fly.